All right, everyone, good evening. This is Jahlon from the Paradox Gaming Network, and tonight I'm doing another pre-alpha look on Ashes of Creation. I want to send a big thank you out to Ruby Unicorn, who commented on my last Ashes video that a review before a first alpha doesn't exist. It's just not possible. And since I'm a big fan of words and I believe words matter, Ruby was absolutely right. So that's why I've changed these into pre-alpha look, because what they are is an academic review of the information that's been put out. So tonight we're going to be looking at archetypes and skills. Before we get started, I want to let everybody know that if you need to get in touch with me, you can visit me through my webpage, or you can send me a direct email. Finding me on Discord is probably the easiest, and I'm Jahlon, #8446. And for all my ArcAge players out there who don't know about my ArcAge 101 classroom, you can follow this invite link, or you can come to my webpage, and right here will take you directly into the ArcAge 101 classroom. So like with all my videos, I'm going to ask 3 things of you. The first is if you could go ahead and subscribe. Even if you don't necessarily agree with all my content, I do like to get feedback from people on how I'm growing as a video producer. If this video meets your expectations of quality, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if it doesn't, if you could go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me the things that I could work on to improve. And I want to say thank you to Carve Apollo, who last week mentioned that the audio quality on my video wasn't very high. And I wanted to say that I am working on it, so your comment did not fall on deaf ears. And I know that I have a lot of things to do to make my audio quality better. So, the hype. Since last week, I've had 85 visits through my referral link, and of those, 29 people actually signed up to Ashes of Creation. So why am I hyping this game so much?
Somewhere, someone on this planet does not know about this show. Asia, Africa, Antarctica. There's a fucking Eskimo sitting in his little igloo. Find him. Got him.
The fact that 29 people followed my link last week and signed up lets me know that this game, while it has a huge following already at 20,000 pledged backers on Kickstarter, there's still a lot of people who don't know about it. So I want to make sure that absolutely every single gamer that I come in contact with knows about the game. So I'm just trying to track some statistics to see how many people I get to sign up. So if you don't know about the game and you haven't already registered, go ahead and follow that referral link. That way I get to see how many people I get to sign up for the game this week. So let's get started. First and foremost, we're going to talk about archetypes and archetype combinations. Then we're going to review 4 specific archetypes, and these will be the ones that are available during Alpha 0. And we're going to talk about their skills. We're going to go over skill discussion and the skill progression system. So to talk about archetypes, we know that in Ashes of Creation, we will have to pick a primary archetype, and that will be the archetype that we stay with the entire time. We also know that we get to pick a secondary archetype, and it is possible to change that secondary archetype. What we have been told is that this will not be possible on the fly, so don't be expecting to change your secondary archetype while in dungeons. So what exactly does that mean? That means that we are going to have a great deal of combinations for how we're going to play. Now I will let you know that a lot of what's coming up is going to sound like I have some inside track, and I don't. I want to let you know right now, I'm going to disarm what you're about to say.
You have no proof, no witnesses. You just have theories. It's just conjecture.
And that's absolutely right. I have pieced together all of the different facts that I can find. That's why I'm only putting out 1 video per week. I'm actually going out, reading, finding the facts, and bringing them to you. So some of the stuff you're going to see right now is going to be theories and conjecture, but I'm going to show you the facts. Also, I'm going to be using some examples that aren't necessarily valid or sound. I'm just using them for the theoretical thought process. So say I'm making my first character, and it's been about 10 years since I've tanked, so I decide that I want to tank. So I'm going to pick tank as my primary archetype. Now I know that this decision commits me to being a tank for the rest of my Ashes career on this character. I also know that during gameplay, I'll be able to choose any of these 8 archetypes as my secondary archetype, which gives me essentially access to 8 different archetype combinations. So for this example, I'm going to choose tank, and I'm going to drop off these other 3 melee. Now, because there's red on one side and blue on the other, I want to make sure that I let everybody know you could be a tank fighter, a tank ranger, a tank rogue, just as easily as you could be a tank in anything on this side of the screen. So for this example, I take tank as my primary, and I'm deciding on my secondary, and since I want to be a self-sufficient tank, and with the information we have right now, we don't know about summoners or bards, I choose to go tank cleric. That might give me the archetype combination known as paladin. But say I wanted to stay my usual healer self. So I'm going to choose to be a cleric as my primary archetype. And then I look at everything else on the screen, and I don't want any of these other magic type ones, so I'm going to drop those off. And I really don't want any of these melee type ones either. Can I double down and be a cleric? Absolutely, yes I can. Now, if I'm a cleric, maybe my archetype combination is known as priest. Maybe it's known as cleric. We don't have the name right now, but we can at least show you the concept that you can mix and match any way you want. So basically what we have is that I have cleric or tank and any other combination. And that's going to be a big thing because a lot of other games don't allow this sort of character development. Ultimately, this is going to give us 64 different unique archetype combinations. Now, this is going to be a little bit different for Archage players, and I have a slide specifically for you. But for this slide, I get to pick one as my primary, and as I showed, this one doesn't fall away, so I can double down. So it leaves me with 64 different archetype combinations. So tank plus cleric would be a paladin. Cleric plus tank would not be a paladin. It would be something different. And I bring this up for my Archage players because you're used to any combination of battle rage, defense, and vitalism, no matter which order you put them in the skill slots, all lead you to paladin. And that's why I used paladin as the name. So when will we have the list of names for archetype combinations? We have been told that we will have this before the December 15th Alpha 0 testing phase, which I think is kind of cool because we can start thinking about class combinations. So now to move into skills. We do know that we will have a skill progression tree. We do know that skills will unlock at levels, and that we will gain skill points as we level. We know that we will be able to invest more points into a skill, and investing will unlock more potency in those abilities. Now, all of this information comes from the October 16th live stream, and that link is below. Now, I want to point out right here that I've already sent a question into Intrepid, because on the live stream and on the wiki, they talk about skills, but in the gameplay interface, we see the word abilities. I've asked for clarification because I want to make sure that we keep the words the same. I will say that right now you can see your points available, and we really don't know what any of these things are, but it is a very neat and very clean interface, which I'm sure this is just pre-alpha footage. I'm sure they're going to clean all this up as they go. So to talk about the 4 archetypes, we're going to talk about clerics, mages, rangers, and tanks. And the only reason why we're going to limit our discussion to these 4 is these are the only 4 that have information published right now. So to start our conversation with clerics, I can't tell you how excited I am about what I'm seeing with the descriptions of the cleric. It looks like a lot of thought has gone into clerics and how they can be something other than the person who stands at the back of the party or the back of the raid, literally can mash 2 buttons and can watch Netflix on their side screen. I like the fact that on most of the abilities, if we follow, at some point a damage aspect jumps into a lot of the abilities. I especially like the fact that there's a good mix of direct target, random target, and ground reticles. So you do have a totem in Stolen Blessing. You have a jump heal, which is chain heal, lifeline. A really big fan of abilities like that. I like the fact that there's a good healthy mix of hots as well as direct heals. So just with these abilities that we see, I'm really liking Cleric. I will say that the proximity chain stun up here is a very unique looking ability in that it chains enemies to the center point, and if they try to leave, it stuns them. Now, there's a lot of synergy I'm already seeing between mages, tanks, and clerics. One thing I am concerned about is reading this soul paralysis. I'm never been a fan of total lockdown abilities of another character. I find that they lead to 2v1s where somebody's getting killed and there's not a lot they can do about it. So if you look in the lower right hand corner, I'm bringing up a little ArcAge footage. And what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a person using telekinesis completely render another character helpless. So this is going to be one ability that I'm hoping to get into early testing for, because I really do want to take a look at that ability. And then I do love the fact that there is a life bolt, basically a direct damage ability. And I think it's interesting that it's based on the caster's missing health, and that for one upgrade point you can turn it into an AoE. That's going to be an interesting counterattack for healers, because if you're going to almost kill a healer, you better be able to survive whatever that damage on life bolt scales at. And then the final thing I want to point out about clerics is that this medium armor passive, and I thought that it was very interesting that healers are actually wearing medium armor. What you're going to see in the next three classes is you're going to see robes, you're going to see light, and you're going to see heavy. So with 4 out of the 8 classes, healers are actually wearing the second most armory armor. And I think that's really going to change the dynamic of healing, because no longer is PvP going to become about, can I kill their healers faster than they can kill my healers? If healers become problematic to kill, that's going to change PvP dynamics. So moving on to mages. Mages, I'm not going to shortchange you, but really, as we know, there's not a lot to discuss when it comes to mage skills, mage abilities in any games. You basically have direct damage, and then you have upgrades that either add dots or burns or debuffs or status effects, and that's really what we have here. One ability that I am interested in looking at is alter image, or after image, mirror image. You are invulnerable for 4 seconds. Now, you can increase the duration with 1 point, and for 2 points it increases the damage while buff is active. This is another interesting one that I want to see in actual gameplay. I'm always hesitant when it comes to a big I'm invulnerable but I can still take actions thing, but I'm sure that Intrepid has thoroughly thought this one through. Mages have some other really cool abilities, and I'm really liking this Mage's Private Sanctum. The target is removed to a different plane. It's almost like, haha, I steal your target and you can't kill it. So they're about to kill your healer, send the healer off the board for a few seconds. I am interested to find out if this can be used on hostiles as well. And the only reason why I wonder if it can be used on allies or hostiles is just this first upgrade and granting extra mana while banished. This is actually kind of cool, and I think it's going to have a lot of versatility. Other ones, portal. Creates a portal under the caster, and the exit portal is determined. Portal will only work, increases range, reduces threat, and clears target. I'm actually wondering how this is going to affect PvP and basically what I like to call board control or fight control. If you can move around and get through lines, this is going to be an interesting one as well. Black hole is what I was talking about with synergy between different classes. Different archetypes. The mage casts black hole, pulls all the characters to a specific spot, and then the cleric proximity chain stuns and keeps them all there. So that's the sort of thing that even though we won't see gameplay for about a year, we can do some theory craft on. And then as you see, mages wear robes. And as I mentioned, this is very odd that mages and healers are going to be wearing different armor. Usually, in every other game I've played, it's pretty standard. Mage, healer wears cloth, the lowest armor. Moving on to rangers. Rangers, again, are a lot like mages. You have a limited amount of things you can do with them simply by the nature of what they do. You're going to have bow attacks. You're going to have specific arrows. Lots of bleeds as pretty standard. I do like this Sniper's Eye. A zone around you. Within this zone, deal 200% damage for all attacks. I am wondering if that is... I'm interested in wondering if that's just for the archer, or I'm sorry, just for the ranger. But I don't quite understand the first upgrade and the second upgrade. It increases to 4 arrows and works on all arrow shots. So this is going to be one that I'm looking for more details as time goes on. I do like this one. It's Slice. Cone melee attack, which can be upgraded to 360 degrees and can add bleed. It's always nice to see when game makers remember that a bow can be used as a melee weapon as well. And they wear light armor, which is, also kind of strange. I would have expected that the Rangers would have worn like medium leather, but it's going to be interesting to see. It looks like Rangers are stacked for lots and lots of damage. Light armor increases damage. Their ranged passive increases crit chance. So it looks like a lot of stacking bleeds and crit. And finally, tanks. I love the fact that a lot of the discussions about tanks with Ashes of Creation is how to make them relevant in PvP. And in most games, a tank becomes highly irrelevant in PvP because all of their taunt abilities seem to be irrelevant. Oh, you taunted me. Oh, I hit tab and I go back to my target. Or, oh, I click on my target and your taunt mean nothing. I do find it interesting that on the wiki for all you potential tanks, they actually listed a lot of the questions asked. So rest assured, they are paying attention to your questions. I do like this ability, Righteous Fury. You launch spears at all targets within your forward arc, and you can increase it to an arc radius of 360. I do have to wonder if they're going to reduce that. Otherwise, it's going to be quite funny to see a tank run in and Righteous Fury like 200 people, depending on the range. Down here, Absorb Bubble. It's going to have a better name. They said that on the live stream. And pretty standard block passive, heavy armor passive. So the classes, for what we can see right now, I've presented all that information to you. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty well thought out. Going to be interested in seeing some discussions when we can finally get into alpha. All right, and to close this one up, I'm really hoping that as we move into Ashes of Creation, we can do something that I like to call theory crafting rather than creating the meta. Now, what does creating the meta mean? Well, what that turns into is that every cleric has to have these abilities. Every tank has to have this build. Quite often in ArcAge, I get asked, what's my cleric build? And I will usually share it directly because I don't care if people know how I run my build. But if somebody asks me to make them a build, I will give them the straight like core bread and butter abilities that a cleric needs. But I like to leave a lot of points for float or customization. And that's what I mean by theory crafting. I can tell you why I run my build the way I run my build, but that build's not going to work for everybody. And a case in point is on Conviction, there is another healer that I will PvP with, and her name is Alizar. And she is completely phenomenal at keeping the whole raid up. Whereas I am turning more and more into a frontline initiator who can just basically be a self-healing meat shield. And that doesn't make my playstyle better than hers, and it doesn't make her playstyle better than mine. What it does is it shows that two healers can do things differently, but develop synergy between them and be complementary. So as we move into Ashes, and I know we have a long time before launch, but don't get yourself so caught up in following the meta. Ask people why they do things the way they do. Ask them for their builds and look at their builds, but don't follow them blindly, because you don't know when you're going to be the person who builds what other people want to be. And that's all I have for you today. Today we talked about archetypes and archetype combinations. We reviewed the specific archetypes and skills for the 4 archetypes that'll be seen in the Alpha 0 play on December 15th. And we talked about skills and the skill progression system. I hope that everything in this video inspired you to hit that subscribe button and to give me a thumbs up. Or if something was wrong with the video and you have any feedback or suggestions, please go ahead and leave a comment below. Hey, you. Yes, you. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. Hit that subscribe button. Watch a couple of more videos. Go check out our website.